3 degrees. It's a cool, comfortable evening here. The roof is open. It was open about midway through batting practice this evening, and now it's a perfect night for baseball. The Blue Jays trying to win the 3rd straight game against Minnesota. Minnesota has had just 16 hits in their last 5 games. Paul Molitor has shaken up the lineup tonight. Aaron Hicks will lead off for just the 2nd time this season, trying to spark this Twins lineup. Dozier, Mauer, Sano, then Trevor Plouffe. This season against the Blue Jays, Plouffe has been a tough out. 6 for 19, 3 extra base hits. He's driven in 3. Eddie Rosario moves to right field tonight. He was in left field the first 2 games. He's 12 for 36, and he's scored 10 runs. The Twins desperate for some offense, and Paul Molitor trying to shake things up tonight against Drew Hutchison.
Yeah, just 7 runs over their last 5 games, so they shake it up a little bit. Drew Hutchison gets ready for his 22nd start of the season. He has pitched really well here at Rogers Center. He has won his last 5 games here. Last time out, just 5 innings against Kansas City. Failed to go 6 innings for the 8th time in his last 9 starts. He's pitching around a lot of base runners in those 5 innings, 8 base runners. He says he wants quicker outs and quicker innings. It took him 75 pitches to get through 5 innings last time out.
That has been a problem for Hutchison all season long, the elevated pitch counts early in the ball game. Aaron Hicks, a switch hitter, batting left against Hutchison. First pitch is up and away, and we are underway. Hicks led off for the Twins on the 23rd of July out in Anaheim against the Angels in a 3-0 win for Minnesota. And here he gets a leadoff single. The Twins in this game, in this series, have had just 5 hits in the first 2. Hicks has a single in the first at bat of the night. Defensively, in the outfield, Ben Revere makes his 5th start in left field. Kevin Pillar's in center. Bautista's in right. Josh Donaldson missed his start, number 100 for Donaldson at 3rd base. Tulowitzki and Goins up the middle. Colabello at 1st, and Russell Martin back behind the plate tonight for Drew Hutchison.
Chris Colabello getting the start over at first base. He was teammates with Twins starting pitcher tonight, Kyle Duffy, so he knows a little something about him. He'll get his 16th start at first base.
This is Brian Dozier, the 2nd baseman. Dozier has led off for the Twins in the first 2 games. Drop him down to the 2 spot, seeing if they can't get something going. Boy, they have been flat. They have lost 8 of the last 12 games, and they just can't get anything going since coming out of the All-Star break.
1 run in each of the last 3 games, just a single run in 4 of their last 5 games. And I think they've scored 7 runs over the last 5. So Paul Molitor says, I don't want to send a message of panic, but I want to change things up just a little bit to try and stir this offense up.
Big lead at first by Hicks. Hutch holding the ball and very effectively icing the runner at first. Hicks has 9 steals. He's been caught 3 times. This is his 3rd start, Hutchison, against the Twins.
He dropped Dozier down into that 2nd spot. He's got a lot of power, but he's been struggling a little bit since the All-Star break. Just .217 since the All-Star break. 3 for 16 in the month of August is Dozier. So he puts him in the number 2 hole. Maybe he'll get a few more fastballs with Hicks on first base.
Dozier's got some power. 23 home runs for the season. Reaches for that pitch up and away.
21 of those home runs came as a leadoff hitter, which is the most in baseball. So I guess Paul Molitor wants to have him hit with a few more guys on base because of that power.
Dozier had a pinch hit home run in the All-Star game. That was in the 8th inning to put the American League up 6-2 in that game. So he put his power on display in the biggest of stages. 0-2 pitch. Pulled to Donaldson at 3rd base. The umpire calls him out. Jim Welke, the 3rd base umpire, once that ball popped out of his glove, Welke made the sign that he was taking the ball out of his glove. And that'll be a catch for Donaldson.
There really no chance to double up the runner over there at first base, but what a play by Donaldson at 3rd. Hutchison, fastball up and in, and this ball is hit hard, but Josh Donaldson right there. You mentioned the left side of the infield's been pretty good. There it is.
2 of the best in the game. Donaldson at 3rd and Tulowitzki at short. One out now for Joe Mauer. Mauer was 0 for 4 in the game last night. Mauer just hasn't been able to put together a consistent streak this season, batting .266. He's 0 for his last 5. Had a terrible homestand. He went 6 for 33 in that 9-game homestand for the Twins. There goes Hicks. He got a late break. Looked more like a hit and run break than a straight steal. He was very late making his first step towards second.
One more time to jump. You can see he's got 1 foot on the carpet right there. That is not a good jump, but it might have been a hit and run because he was looking in. See him take a quick peek to see where that ball was. Hey, the way Minnesota has been struggling to score runs, you got to do something.
And as a defensive team, the Blue Jays should anticipate different things, different counts, and unorthodox offensive moves by Molitor. Pretty good pitch. Russell Martin wanted it. He held the glove there to give the umpire a good look. Tom Woodring is the home plate umpire, and Martin will go to work on the ump, casually saying, man, that looked like a pretty good pitch to me.
I thought we had a pretty good chance there. That looked like a breaking ball right there from Hutch, something that he's starting to do a little bit more against lefties. I always thought that, you know, Drew needs to use that changeup just a little bit more to get people off of that fastball. Show them a different speed. Seems like everything has been the same speed when he is out there. When he's changing up and using the changeup and using his breaking ball, I think that's when he is most effective.
Upstairs, 3-1 to Mauer, 1 out.
You know, one thing that we've noticed here the first couple of batters in this game, he's just not getting on top of the ball just yet. He's getting underneath it, and that's why a lot of the fastballs have been up in the strike zone.
Hicks at first, a conservative lead. Not running. Ball 4, another pitch upstairs. Everything bunched up and away from Mauer.
Well, I talk about the changeup, and the numbers really bear it out. It's the All-Star game. You can see the opponent's batting average when he uses the changeup before the All-Star game was over 350. It's 133 since then. Opponent's slugging average has been sliced in half using the changeup. He's got to put that in their mind. He's got to use it with his fastball and his breaking ball. Everything comes out of the same slot, and it seems like everything is the same speed. So he's got to be able to get that changeup and get it down.
This is Miguel Sano, the DH. That's a little looper, and that's going to drop. Hicks read it perfectly. Pilar comes up throwing. His throw will go to third, not in time. And Sano moves into second. So the Twins score in the first here. Sano with a bloop single into center. Picks up the RBI as Hicks comes in to score.
Good base running by the Twins. First Hicks. Watch him on second base, recognizing that that ball is going to fall. He's got plenty of speed that he's going to score. Pilar knows that. Now he thinks he's got that back runner in Mauer, but the throw's offline, and when the Blue Jays let the ball go through, that allows the batter, Sano, to get into scoring position also. So an aggressive Twins team so far tonight.
Yeah, you can expect that from the Twins, and now Blue Jays are looking at the possibility of a review, but they will wave it off. Second and third, 1 out.
Twins had a team meeting yesterday before the ball game, keeping the team from pressing. That's what Paul Molitor's message was to the team. Just, you know, don't press, don't worry about, go out there and play your game. Said he didn't want to send a message of panic to his team.
Minnesota 2 games over 500. This is Trevor Proof, who waves at the first pitch. Molitor has been very even keel all throughout his tenure as a first-year manager. Of course, he was pretty even keel as a player too. Hall of Famer.
On the outside. On the inside, though, it was burning, wasn't it?
Competitive. Popped out of play. Hutchison still battling, getting that fastball down.
Yeah, he's going to have to throw a couple of breaking balls, I think, to get that hand on top of the ball. A reversal of fortune a little bit for the Twins. Before the All-Star break, they're 9 games over. Since then, just 5-12.
And the pitching has fallen off. The hitting has disappeared. 213, and they've scored almost a full run less per game since the All-Star break. Hutchison ahead 0-2, and it's a pretty good pitch down and away. Didn't get the call, but a much better location for that fastball.
Much better. He got on top of that one and really drove that ball down.
Fastball driven into center. Pillar's not going to get it. That's going to score 2. Bauer's in right behind him. Sano, and Trevor Plouffe with a 1-out 2-run double in Minnesota. Has 3 runs already.
Thought they might go with a breaking ball right there with 2 strikes just so he can get on top of that baseball and drive it down. It's a fastball again. And watch the location. It's up and away, and good hitters are going to hit this all the time. When it's up, they don't have to reach for it. They can just use their hands and hit the ball the other way. When it's down, they have to go get it, and there's not a lot of power behind it.
3-0 Twins. They have 3 hits, 2 more RBIs for Plouffe. He now has 57. There's a slider off the plate. This is Eddie Rosario, who's playing in right field. Rosario, for his last 10 games, hitting .333, 12 for 36. There's the good changeup. Finally gets that into the mix. Well, Molitor got the desired results by shaking up the lineup tonight. He put Aaron Hicks in the leadoff spot for just the 2nd time this year, and they've scored 3 runs. Sometimes you just got to change the look.
Yep, just got to do something different. Rather than tweaking, he says. Just give them a different look.
They got a shot at second, and they got it. Plouffe, for some reason, took off toward third. Boy, there's another example of why make an out there. You've got a good left-handed hitter with 1 out. You're in scoring position, and watch him break from second.
Where are you going? That's what I want to know. Are you going to try and steal third base? Kind of tough to do that with a left-handed batter up there. And there's the tag before he got there.
So Rosario lifts a fly ball to medium center. Pilar makes the catch. Blue Jays give up 3 runs on 3 hits. 2-run double by Trevor Plouffe, the capper in the inning. Blue Jays with an early hole. Bottom of the first, let's take a look at their lineup for John Gibbons. It's Tulowitzki, Donaldson, and Bautista, and then Edwin Encarnacion. He's the DH tonight. Boy, over his last 12 games, he's swinging a hot bat. .349 average, 4 extra base hits, and he's driven home 3. And how about Ryan Goins taking over every day at second base? His last 7 games, he's hit nearly .350 with a home run and 2 RBIs. Doing a nice job filling in for Devin Travis.
And they will face a pitcher making his major league start. Right here, first major league start, major league debut. This is Tyler Duffy. He was drafted by the Twins 3 years ago. That was in the 5th round of the 2012 first-year player draft. He attended Rice University. He was teammates with Washington's Anthony Rondon and Cincinnati's Tony Cingrani. He is the 7th Twin to make his major league debut this season.
Fastball down and away. Blue Jays know a little bit about Duffy. As Pat mentioned earlier, Chris Colabello played with Duffy in the minor leagues in the Twins system. Duffy actually pitched against the Buffalo Bisons twice this season. 2 of the Blue Jays on the bench were in the lineup against Duffy. Munenori Kawasaki played in both games. Deanna Navarro was actually the DH in the first start Duffy made against Buffalo on May 29th.
And the scattering report on him is he'll come in and he'll throw strikes. He's not afraid. He doesn't run away from contact. So I think the Jays should be very quick. Be quick to swing the bat tonight.
Munenori was 3 for 6 in the 2 games started by Duffy. Nice play by that fan as he stood up and caught that ball before it rattled into the seats. Made his son very proud. Got a baseball in the first inning. Pat mentioned that Duffy is from Rice University. Played 3 years at Rice, and they've had some good pitchers come out of Rice University over the years. And Anthony Rendon, of course, great third baseman at Rice. Former Blue Jay Jose Cruz Jr. played at Rice. And Duffy and Cruz Jr. actually went to the same high school in Houston, Bel Air High School.
Rice has produced some pitchers of late, haven't they?
They have done a great job over the years. Full count. Blue Jays need some base runners early. Troy Tulowitzki hit his 14th home run last night in the 3rd inning. Look out. Duffy overthrew that fastball and he walks Tulowitzki. Duffy came out of the 2012 draft, drafted just 38 months ago, and you see his numbers in AA and AAA this season.
And look at the whip. There's not a lot of walks in his arm. A lot of strikeouts, some big strikeout games. So 13 starts this season in the minor leagues. He's given up 24 earned runs. He's only walked 18 batters in the minor leagues this season.
This is Josh Donaldson. He looks at a first pitch strike. Donaldson having a terrific season, 293. He's got 29 home runs and 28 home runs and 29 doubles. Good stretch of games over the last 2 weeks for Donaldson. Upstairs. You see Duffy talking to himself about getting the ball down. You might be able to get away with that in AA and AAA. That's not the case up here. And look at these 3 Blue Jays in your picture. Tulowitzki, Donaldson, and Bautista. They'll wear you out.
I wonder if he saw signs of them while he was going over the scouting report or when he went to bed last night, seeing Tulowitzki and Donaldson. I mean, it's his major league debut, first chance to pitch it in the big leagues, and he's got to face the Blue Jays. It's a tall order.
He's 24 years old. Donaldson hits it high and deep to left. This ball is high. This ball is gone. So much for a 3-run deficit. Donaldson has just tied his career high with his 29th home run of the season. What a 1-2 punch.
We talked about it in the opening, Buck, about those two at the top of the lineup. Pitchers have got to bear down early, or they're going to be a couple of runs on the board. Leadoff walk to Tulowitzki, and then a home run by Donaldson has the Blue Jays right back into this one. Josh has now driven in 80 runs this year. Little two-seamer right down and in where he likes it.
He didn't really hit that ball all that well. It was toward the end of the bat. Bautista hits one to center, and Hicks freezes. Now he goes back. He's on the track and makes the catch.
We were watching batting practice today, and the ball was jumping as soon as they opened up the roof here. Right before batting practice, as you see Josh talking about the changeup, fastball down and in, and started noticing the ball really starting to carry here. So you mentioned that Josh didn't hit that ball well enough. Still got it in the seats in left center.
Donaldson has now homered in 4 straight games against the Twins. That extends his hit streak to 23 straight games against Minnesota. He becomes just one of 11 players in Major League history to have a 23-game hit streak against the Twins. That goes all the way back to 1914. That's a long time.
100 years, right?
Edwin Encarnacion. Well, you're right about top of this order. Really putting pressure on a starting pitcher, especially a young man making his major league debut.
You know, how many times have we talked about pitchers, you know, taking an inning or two to get loose and kind of find their way out on the mound? You can't do that against Blue Jays. You better bring your A game when the game starts.
It's a foul ball. The Blue Jays won last night 3-1. It was their first win scoring 3 runs or fewer since July 7th. That was against the White Sox. It was their first home win 3 runs or fewer since May 4th. They generally put up a lot of crooked numbers here at home.
What was that, just their 8th win in scoring 3 or fewer runs? Scoring 4 or fewer runs, 8 wins and 40 losses.
3-2. High pop. Behind second. Dozier out into the outfield, waits on it, and it finally comes down 2 down. Well, the Blue Jays are putting up prodigious offensive numbers, but don't look now. Friday night they will go up against the New York Yankees, and the Yankees have been killing it lately. The Yankees are scoring tons of runs right now, and they had 13 last night against the Red Sox. You don't think there'll be some fireworks over the weekend in New York?
Oh boy, they scored 13 last night versus the Red Sox, and they've been doing that now for a while, scored some runs.
In their last 7 games in the Bronx, the Yankees have scored 69 runs. Changeup misses downstairs. Ball and a strike to Colabello.
Let me do some quick math here. Let's see, 69 divided by 7, and then carry the 2. That's almost 10 runs a game.
That's a lot of runs. David Price, he'll go on Saturday in the afternoon game. It'll be Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and Sunday afternoon. A quick 3-game swing into Yankee Stadium. And that's going to be a test of what you're about to see the rest of the way. Blue Jays are anxious for that matchup, but first business at hand.
Yeah, and
take care of the Twins.
Every one of them were talking about that. They're not looking towards this weekend. They're looking to tonight's ball game. Got to take care of business before you head out on the road.
One of the most difficult things in baseball now is to interpret a young pitcher's numbers from the minor leagues. Doesn't walk anybody, throws a lot of pitches, comes right at you, throws a lot of strikes. It doesn't translate. Right back to the pitcher. Duffy gets a piece of it. Dozier's throw, not in time. Colabello legs it out for an infield hit.
I'll tell you, when a hitter hits a ball and thinks he has a shot at an infield hit, you're going to see a second or third gear. Watch this ball right back through the middle. He thinks he has it in his glove. Nope. It's right behind the mound. And Chris Colabello's thinking base hit all the way. Hustles himself into a hit. Thinks it's in the glove. Looks and says, no, there it is. Dozier's got to try and make the play, but it's too late.
Duffy was fortunate. He got a glove up to deflect that ball away from his head. In fact, he thought he had it in the webbing of his glove. But that was a rocket right back to the mound. Colabello with a hit in his first at bat. The Twins sent 6 men to the plate in the top half. Russell Martin will be the 6th Blue Jay to bat here in the bottom of the first. Martin was the DH in last night's game, finished up 0 for 4. All of these veteran Blue Jay hitters are very patient facing a pitcher they don't know much about. They'll take a strike, sometimes even 2, just to get them set up for the whole night.
They'll go and look at the film and have a game plan what they want to do, but it's nothing like standing in that box and getting an idea, especially first time through. I think you got to make him throw a lot of pitches. You want to see his breaking ball, you want to see his changeup, you want to see what his fastball does. I was talking to Chris Colabello today. They were teammates last year together, Duffy and Colabello, when they were in AAA with Minnesota Twins in Rochester. Saw him about 4 o'clock today, 4:30, and I said, what do you got on this pitcher? He goes, I've already looked at the film. I know exactly what he's going to do. I played with him last year. He's gutsy. He's going to challenge you, but I've looked at the film, and I have a pretty good idea of what he's going to try and do to get me out.
Missed with that fastball. It's a outside fastball. Now it's 3-2. Colabello at first will be off on the pitch. Joe Mauer has backed up behind him. Blue Jays have answered the Twins 3 runs with 2 of their own here in the bottom of the first. There goes Colabello. Martin hits a high fly ball to right. Rosario's got plenty of room just in front of the warning track. The inning is over. It took 31 pitches for Tyler Duffy to retire the Blue Jays. Josh Donaldson with a man aboard goes deep. He has tied his career high, his 29th home run, same total he had last year for Oakland.
dropped his appeal of his 3-game suspension. He will start serving that suspension tonight. Now, the thinking behind that is, since Sanchez pitched yesterday, he may not have been available this evening. And with Mark Burley going tomorrow, R.A. Dickey going Friday, the Blue Jays may not need a deep pen. So Sanchez will be available for the final 2 games in New York. As for his good friend Marcus Stroman, he's making progress, folks. He's expected to make a rehab assignment August 21st. The Blue Jays do not want to risk his long-term health, but if he is able to get in just a little bit of work, even 1 inning, it will go a long way in the confidence department, Buck, as he goes into the offseason.
Yeah, it sure will, Hazel, but I think the Blue Jays have higher expectations from Stroman. I think he does of himself as well, but you're right. When you have an injury, it's always good to finish up the season on the active roster just for your mental health. Then you go into your regular offseason program knowing that you've already made your return to the big leagues.
You know, even if it's just 1 inning, that would be awfully nice to see, but we'll see how that one plays out. You know, Marcus is doing everything he can to get back out there.
Reports have it that he threw today and that he is anxious to return August 21st. And, you know, everybody just kind of assumes that Marcus would fit into the bullpen. I don't think that's the case. I think they're going to be open to anything and just watch him progress as he makes his way through the rehab process.
Well, that's towards the end of the minor league season, which gets really tricky then. There's no games to play.
Yeah, it's over generally about Labor Day, but there are playoff situations that you could pitch in if the Blue Jays had a minor league team in the playoffs.
I think Dunedin won the first half. I think. I was looking at it the other day. I think they won the first half, so they'll be in the Florida State League playoffs.
This is the shortstop, Eduardo Escobar. He fouls it straight back. Wasn't it a couple of years ago when Andy Pettitte was coming back from an injury for the Yankees and he pitched in a Double-A playoff game for Trenton?
I think so, yeah.
He went down to Double-A and they said, "Who's pitching against you guys tonight?" "Oh, a fellow named Pettitte." "You mean Andy Pettitte?"
He's still pitching?
Escobar with the leadoff walk here in the second. That's the second walk already issued by Hutchison. The Twins have had 16 hits in their last 5 games coming into this ballgame. They've had 3 hits and 2 walks already tonight.
They won a game versus Seattle with just 3 runs. I mean, that's how it's been tricky for them trying to score runs. Hutch needs a shutdown inning right here.
Underneath that pitch again, and it's up out of the zone. Blue Jays are stirring down in their bullpen. Looks like Bo Schultz has grabbed his glove and he's going to start to throw. Games are dwindling and you don't have a lot of time to make up a lot of ground. The Blue Jays at the start of play, 5.5 games back of the Yankees, and that's their target. Don't think about wild card. They got their eye on the Yankees.
Absolutely. So you got to win ball games and you can't fall behind.
This is Eric Fryer, the catcher. He waves at that pitch. It's a ball on the strike. Fryer began his career with the Milwaukee Brewers. He signed in 2007 as a 10th round pick of Milwaukee. Two and one now. Minnesota has a 3-2 lead, both clubs scoring in the first inning. Minnesota with 3. Toronto answered with a 2-run home run. Josh Donaldson going deep. Another pitch up out of the strike zone. Fryer chased it and did Hutchison a favor. Fryer's 29 years old. He is giving Kurt Suzuki the day off.
He's an Ohio guy from the Columbus area. Actually went to Ohio State. Played for the Buckeyes.
umpire strikes out. First strikeout of the ball game for Drew Hutchison. They mentioned how well the Jays have pitched since the All-Star break, and to a man, they have really been throwing the ball well since that July break.
Look at the American League rankings right here. The team ERA is first. Their starters ERA, bullpen ERA, both first. The team WHIP is first at under 1. And they're tied for 14th, but that's good. That's where you want to be in home runs allowed. They've only given up 13 home runs since the All-Star break, so everybody's kicking it into gear for the Jays.
Dickey has dropped his ERA to 4.06. The win for Estrada last night ties his career high at 9, and his ERA is 3.40. Burley has 11 wins and a 3.32 earned run average, and as much as we talk about the offense, and it's very good, the pitching is really stepping it up here.
Yeah, I don't think you can win without getting good pitching, and the Blue Jays have certainly been getting that.
Shane Robinson getting the start. He's in left field tonight, batting ninth. Strike 2. Paul Molitor has 3 regulars out of the lineup tonight. Catcher Kurt Suzuki, Torrey Hunter, and Eduardo Nunez. Combined, they are 0 for 10 against Hutchison. So you can see Molitor's looking for positive matchups however he can find them. Breaking ball, that's going to drop for a base hit. An 0-2 base hit for Shane Robinson. That slider just kind of hung out over the plate. He went at it and served it into left.
You know, sometimes they hit good pitches. That was a pretty good pitch by Drew Hutchison. Not a bad place to throw an 0-2 breaking ball down and away. And look at the swing. That's a defensive swing from Robinson, but he gets enough of the bat on the baseball and get it into the outfield for a hit.
Two on, back to the top of the order. Aaron Hicks got everything started with a single to center. He scored the first Twins run. Bo Schultz is still throwing down in the Blue Jays bullpen. Another changeup bounced in the dirt, ball on the strike. Marco Estrada was terrific last night in his start. Went 6 2/3, allowed just 2 hits and a single run. Only run scored was a sacrifice fly by Torrey Hunter in the 4th. Marco has really been throwing the ball well lately.
Boy, has he ever. He was hitting his spots early. Just had the one bad inning last night. That was it. Other than that, he was outstanding.
Well, he minimized the damage in that one bad inning. He had the bases loaded and 1 out. Got a sac fly and a strikeout to hold the Twins to just 1. Ground ball. Tulowitzki at short, flips to Goins. Quick turn at second. What a beauty. Tulowitzki shoveled quickly to Goins, and he was full speed coming across the bag. He gets Drew Hutchison out of a jam here in the 2nd. Watch the turn by Goins. Over his shoulder on the money with a lot on it. Double play ends the top of the 2nd.
Bacardi are back. Friday, August 14th, the Blue Jays host the Yankees at 7:07 p.m. Pre-game festival outside Gate 10. Gates will open for you at 4:30 p.m. Enjoy a live performance by Monster Truck in the licensed area. For more information, call 416-341-1234 or visit BlueJays.com. Buck.
Thank you, Hazel. This is Ryan Goins who goes after the first pitch. Dozier knocked it down, but it squeaks past him for a leadoff single for Ryan Goins. We mentioned Goins in his last 7 games coming into this ball game tonight, hitting .348.
He's made some nice adjustments, and you can see he's a little bit shorter to the ball, not a lot of movement. Sends this one back through the middle, and with this slow turf, you always got to hustle it out because the infielder's got a chance to get to it. Dozier gets to it, he knocks it down, but he can't come up with a play.
Kevin Pillar, center fielder, batting with Goins at first. He takes the first pitch strike. Duffy with a little bit of a quick pitch. He unloaded in a hurry but lost his footing on the mound. Ball and a strike to Pillar. Ben Revere is on deck, anxious for his first hit as a Blue Jay. Big part of bottom third's assignment of this Blue Jays lineup. Get on base. Get those big bats up with men on base. Pillar jumps on that pitch, hits it deep, but well fouled.
Yeah, any way you can get on base. You don't have to hit the doubles and the home runs. Just work the count, get on, turn that lineup over for the guys at the top.
That youngster's got a nice souvenir early on. 1-2 to Pillar, nobody out. Breaking ball, base hit to left. Pillar stayed back and hammered that breaking ball to left. Back-to-back base hits here in the second.
Boy, that was a classic swing on a hanging breaking ball right there by Pillar. He stayed back, the hand stayed back. And then once he realized that it was a breaking ball, now he's going to go and get it. You can see he's choking up just a little bit again on that bat and shoots it right by Bluth into left field. Here it is one more time. He keeps that weight on the back foot and then recognizes the breaking ball, and then he goes and lets the swing bring his weight forward.
Ben Revere has 3 sacrifice bunts this season, 1 since coming to the Blue Jays. Shows bunt and pokes at it, foul. Well, Revere's got to do his job. He's got to get the bunt done. For his career, he's got 24 sacrifice bunts, so he's used to this situation. He's having a good season, hitting .288. He was a regular in Philadelphia. He made 89 starts for the Phillies.
And if you're sacrificing, give yourself up, get that ball down. If you're bunting for a hit, that's different. And the Blue Jays will give them one or the other. Bunt for a hit or sacrifice. I imagine they're trying to sacrifice him right now.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what the play is. Tulowitzki is on deck. He's already scored tonight. That's a beauty. He looks at second, throws to first. Duffy retires Revere, who does his job.
Yeah, I thought he had a shot, Buck, at third base because the ball came off the bat so quickly. Paul Molitor's going to come out and talk about something here. Watch it one more time, right back to the mound, and he's got a shot at third base. You can see when he catches the ball, Goins is only halfway there. He takes a look at second. That's a longer throw, and then elects to go over to first base.
That was an interesting visit by Molitor. He came out to talk to Tom Woodring, the home plate umpire. And the only thing I can imagine is that he felt like Revere may have stepped out of the box, but he is indeed not. His move after the bunt took him completely out of the box, but when he made contact with the ball, he was still in the batter's box. So Revere does his job. He sets the table for the top of the order. Breaking ball. No swing, according to Jordan Baker down at first. This is just the 8th time Tulowitzki has hit in the leadoff spot. He hit it once in his first year with the Rockies in 2006. He's hit exclusively in the leadoff spot since joining the Blue Jays. And boy, oh boy, doesn't it look like a brilliant move.
Yeah, it does. We were all caught off guard when he first came here and they put him in the leadoff spot, and we asked John Gibbons why. He said, you know what, I didn't want to disrupt everybody else in the lineup, so I'm just going to take him and put him in that spot where Reyes was. And now he's starting to like what he sees.
So does everybody else. You know, John, if he would have been thinking, he would have said, well, you know, I always thought Tulowitzki would be a good leadoff hitter.
That doesn't sound like Gibby at all, does it?
Not at all. He said, I just didn't want to mess up Donaldson, Bautista, Encarnacion, and
so
the middle of the order.
Yeah, the rest of them. So let's try him there, and it looks brilliant.
Well, and look what happens to Duffy now. You've got a home run hitter at the plate, runners at second and third, and you got Josh Donaldson behind him, who's already hit a 2-run home run.
Who do you want to pitch to?
Nobody. I'll take a pass. 3-1. Tulowitzki has the count in his favor. Three and 2. I mean, here we are in the second inning. Tulowitzki's getting his second at bat of the game with runners at second and third. I mean, you can't write it up any better than that.
I said that to Brooke Jacoby today. I said, you know, I really like Tulowitzki's in the leadoff spot. He said he only leads off one time. That's to lead off the ball game. The rest of the time, he's going to come up. There's going to be guys on base for him.
Tulowitzki caught looking at strike 3. 2 down. Josh Donaldson homered in the first with Tulowitzki aboard. And he's got a 23-game hit streak against the Minnesota Twins. And when you look at his hit chart on pitches that he has hit against the Twin, he hits everything.
Yeah, everything, and it's right in the middle of the plate. He's got that discipline to wait for that ball to come in there. He's hit a lot of sliders. Those are the green dots right there. They've tried a lot of fastball, the red dots, but everything middle in, down and in, up and away, a little bit of everything. I mean, that's how you end up hitting in the high 290s, 300s with power and production.
Breaking ball for a strike. Donaldson has homered in 3 straight games now. It's the 4th time in his career he's homered in 3 straight. Way outside, not close. Another interesting aspect of Donaldson's approach at the plate. 9 of his 29 home runs have come with 2 strikes. So he doesn't really go up there and worry about falling behind.
It's all in the approach. Do you have a good approach at the plate?
Little changeup proved to be effective there. As Duffy's ahead 1-2. .92. Anymore, that's just a very average fastball in the major leagues. There are so many great arms in the big leagues now that 92 doesn't even get your attention.
That's why you got to put it in a good spot to help you get outs.
2-2 to Donaldson. Way outside. Bautista is next. If Donaldson can reach, Bautista will bat. And he loves hitting against the Minnesota Twins. He has 20 career home runs against the Twins. And he'll get to the plate with the bases loaded and 2 outs as Donaldson walks. The first-year pitching coach for the Twins has come out of the Twins dugout. He's headed toward the mound. And of course, this is Tyler Duffy's first big league game, and you can imagine this could be intimidating. Listen, Mr. Duffy, you get a chance to make your first major league start. That's the good news. The bad news is you're starting against the Blue Jays at home.
Yeah, on the road at Rogers Center versus the Blue Jays. You know what? That's what the major leagues is all about. What was Trevor Plouffe doing there?
He was holding up his glove, and the only thing I can think about, he was just trying to cover up the mouths of the pitcher and the pitching coach so nobody can read lips. Everybody's become paranoid with as much video as there is. Well, Jose Bautista steps to the plate with the bases loaded, going single to start it. Pilar singled right behind him. They were bunted to second and third. Tulowitzki struck out, and then Donaldson walked.
Jose was ready for the first pitch. That's what you want to do in RBI situations against a young pitcher. Be ready.
Bautista has hit .329 against Minnesota for his career. And that breaking ball was dangerously inside. Way outside. Changeup missed badly.
Jose is working that count to a fastball. He's going to be hunting fastball now. He doesn't want to go 3-1 to him.
Blue Jays have hit 2 grand slams this season. What did they tell you when you were a kid? Walks as good as a hit. Swing and a drive deep to left field. Goodbye, home run. The 5th career grand slam for Jose Bautista.
You know, that was such a professional at bat right there from Bautista. He really took it to the young player. He was sitting back. He got the first pitch breaking ball, and he swung through it. And then he decided that he was going to try and nibble, and he did. And Jose was not going to have anything to do with that. He was going to wait till he got a fastball. 3-1. He was guessing fastball all the way. Right down Broadway, and Jose hammered that ball to left field.
Bautista hits the Blue Jays' 3rd grand slam of the season. For Jose, that's his 24th home run. That gives him 75 ribbies.
And it came with 2 outs. What a huge hit for the Jays and the momentum.
J.R. Graham, the right-hander, starts to loosen up for the Twins. What an inning. 7, 8, 9. Got it started. And then Bautista caps it off. Drew Hutchison has been a run-producing machine this year. Blue Jays have scored 6, and we're just in the second. High fly ball into shallow center. Dozier out. The second baseman gets out into the field and makes the catch. The inning is over. But what an inning it was. Jose Bautista hits his 5th career grand slam. It comes with 2 outs. Home run number 24 for the season. That gives him 75, and he even enjoyed it.
Price and Troy Tulowitzki to Toronto. Get the story now on Sportsnet.ca or download the Sportsnet magazine app Thursday to get the full issue. Rogers and Shaw Sportsnet 1 customers can get a digital subscription for free. Visit Sportsnet.ca/magazine for details.
Thank you, Hazel. That is one of the best articles I've ever written about any trade deadline dealings. It was done by Arden Zwelling. And check it out in Sportsnet magazine because it's a terrific piece of writing. And he and Alex Anthopoulos talked about the chronology of how these deals came together, and it's very, very interesting.
A lot of inside information there. So, very good.
And it might also encourage you that they might not be done. I think there are some indications that Alex Anthopoulos is continuing to figure out how he can tweak this roster. I think there are a couple things he would like to add to this ball club, and don't be surprised if you see some more transactions involving the Blue Jays, even though we're in the month of August.
Yeah, it gets a little bit trickier now with the waivers and the claims and putting guys through and all that kind of stuff. And it might take a little bit longer, but they're still trying.
Absolutely, they're trying. Everybody's trying. The one thing the Blue Jays have over the Yankees is the Yankees are ahead of the Blue Jays in the standings, and the Blue Jays can block any deal to keep the Yankees from acquiring anybody. Everybody has to go through waivers in the month of August, and you pass through waivers from the worst record in your league to the best. Pop straight back. Strike three call. Fastball at the knees. Well, we talk about the Blue Jays and their acquisitions, and Dozier's given the umpire a little grief after that called third strike. He didn't like the call. But the Blue Jays have had a history of picking up key players after the July trade deadline.
Cliff Johnson, he did that in '85, and they went on to go to the playoffs in that season. Mike Flanagan, right at the trade deadline, August 31st. And then how about this one? This is probably the best one, the David Cone acquisition, August of 1992. It just sent a lightning bolt through that clubhouse that, hey, these guys are serious. They want to win. And Blue Jays will go on to win the World's Championship.
That Cone trade reminded me an awful lot. Well, the David Price trade reminded me of the Cone trade because it really came out of nowhere. Bauer fouls it off. Hutch ahead 0-2. I mean, and the quality of pitcher you get with Price, very similar to David Cone at that stage of Cone's career. He's one of the best in the game.
And the reaction then, just like the reaction now, is, hey, we got David Price. Hey, we got David Cone. It was the same thing that the Blue Jays just experienced a couple of days ago when they got Price.
0-2. You were on that team in '92, and talk about your reaction when you came to the clubhouse finding out you got David Cone.
I remember hearing it that morning. I was going to breakfast, and I heard about it, and I couldn't wait to get to the ballpark. It was almost like I was walking on air the rest of the afternoon, like, hey, we got a real chance now to go to the World Series and win the thing. There was a lot of disappointment the year before when the Blue Jays won the division and lost to the Minnesota Twins in the playoffs, if you remember that. We all felt like we had a really good team that year, that we could win it, but we got upset by the Twins in the first round. The Twins would go on to win the championship.
Yeah, they had a fellow named Jack Morris pitching for him. There's a good changeup. Hutchison strikes out back-to-back batters here in the third. 2 down. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. There is Jack Morris. He is working the TV booth for the Minnesota Twins along with Dick Bremer, the play-by-play guy. And Jack Morris had that great World Series game in '91 and then came to the Blue Jays in '92.
Yeah, weakened the Twins and strengthened the Blue Jays that year. And Jays would go on to win 2 years in a row.
Jack Morris has 4 World Series rings. It's a high pop-up. This got a chance to be caught. Chris Colabello on the warning track and gets a glove on it but can't make the catch. That was up there forever. Colabello had a long run and got a glove on it but just couldn't make the catch.
And how about Ryan Goins going out there to back him up just a little bit? He almost comes up with this. He reaches up for it. It's off the heel of his glove, and then Goins was right there. He's diving for it to try and make the catch before it hit the turf.
They give Colabello an error on that play. Oftentimes they will rule just no play, but Colabello got a glove on it, so he's charged with an error.
That was a little above and beyond, wasn't it, right there?
Yeah.
Effort.
So Hutchison takes care of it. How about a bounce back inning for Drew Hutchison? Dozier, Mauer, and Sano. He strikes out all 3. 3 up, 3 down. Hutchison starting to feel it. He's in a groove now.
the Detroit Tigers. It all gets started Friday, August 28th at 7:07 p.m. For tickets, call 416-341-1234 or visit BlueJays.com.
Thank you very much, Hazel. We move to the bottom of the third, and already the Blue Jays are into the Twins bullpen. This is rookie J.R. Graham. He was a Rule 5 draft pick from Atlanta in December last year during the offseason, and he's just the second Twins player in the last 3 years to make the roster after being taken into Rule 5 draft.
And the Blue Jays saw him when they were in Minnesota earlier this season in a long outing, as that ball is hit hard.
Chris Colabello lines out to the second baseman. 1 pitch, 1 out.
Make your renovation a cut above during the DIY Expert Sale. Only at Home Building Center and Home Hardware Building Center.
One out here in the third. It's 6-3 Blue Jays. Russell Martin flied out to right field to end the first. This is popped up. This is playable. Mauer over near the seats on the warning track. Makes the catch. 2 quick outs here for J.R. Graham.
Told you the Blue Jays saw Graham when they were in Minnesota. That was back last day of May. Remember when Ricky Nolasco started that game and had to come out with an injured leg? It was Graham who came in and gave him 3 really good innings. Gave up 3 hits, a run, had 4 strikeouts versus the Blue Jays. He's the long man now out of their pen.
Ricky Nolasco has been on the DL ever since. Got a right ankle impingement, and he's probably done for the season. This is Ryan Goins. He got everything started for the Blue Jays in the second with a leadoff single. Goins is hitting with a lot of confidence right now. Hitting .237. He's having good at bats in the bottom of the order. He was on base 3 times in last night's game. He walked, had a bunt single, and had a sharp single to center. Finished up the game 2 for 3.
It's all the result of a good at bat. I mean, you can hit the ball hard and all that kind of stuff. He's finding holes, but it all starts with his approach at the plate. And right now, his approach is pretty good. It's very compact with his swing.
What are the benefits of Goins putting the bat on his shoulder?
Well, Blue Jays felt like he had a higher starting point with his bat, and it felt like there was a lot of tension in his shoulders, and it felt like he was, dropping the bat and then getting up underneath it. Now he just puts it on the shoulder and takes his hands back towards the umpire, just relaxes everything.
That ball gets away from the catcher. Goins is headed for first. He'll get there. He reaches on the strikeout and wild pitch. That ball was a sharp breaking ball in the dirt. Eric Fryer, the catcher, couldn't block it. Put it all the way back to the screen. Goins is aboard on the wild pitch.
Heads up play by Goins. Recognize instead of standing around the plate after the strikeout, he knows he not make contact, struck out, so he just hustles down to first base to keep the inning alive.
Ball got away from Fryer. It was a nasty breaking ball down to his right side. He just couldn't get the glove in front of it. Pilar singled and scored in the second. Ben Revere had a big at bat in that second inning. He dropped down a perfect sacrifice bunt. Pilar takes his strike. Is popped up middle of the infield. Dozier, the second baseman, makes the catch. The inning is over. The Blue Jays leave a base runner. We'll head to the fourth. The Jays have a 6-3 lead over the Twins.
Presented by the 2015 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car for 17 years in a row and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Blue Jays trying to win 4 in a row for the first time since they had that 11-game win streak early in June. It's been quite a drought. They haven't been able to string wins together. Drew Hutchison, what a bounce-back inning he had in the third. Hutchison allowed 3 runs on 4 hits and walked 2 in the first 2 innings, and then struck out the side in the third. There's a little jam shot. Tulowitzki takes it on a hop. Poof. Had a tough time getting out of the batter's box. That fastball jammed him so bad.
Yeah, it looks like Drew Hutchison has made an adjustment where he is staying over the rubber just a little bit more, and that's helping him to get the ball down. Remember the first inning, he was flying towards home plate a little bit quicker. Now he's staying back, and that ball's exploding. Plouffe thought that ball might have been caught.
Well, he didn't know where it went. He looked around to see where the ball was. He got jammed. It was right above his hands. This is Eddie Rosario. He pops it up on the first pitch. Donaldson comes down from third and makes the catch. Looked like a changeup, first pitch changeup, and they've used that against Rosario very effectively.
Marco Estrada certainly did in last night's ball game, using the changeup, and now it looks like Hutch is starting to use that a little bit more here tonight.
6 straight retired by Hutchison. Eduardo Escobar walked to start the second. Takes the first pitch strike. Hutchison has turned things around dramatically. Just wonder if he caught Bo Schultz warming up in the bullpen in the second inning.
Or the grand slam by Bautista gave him renewed life.
A little cushion. There's the 0-2 pitch. Outside, 1-2. A lot of day games this afternoon. Tampa Bay lost to the White Sox in Chicago in 10 innings, 6-5. The Mariners lost to the Rockies in Denver in 11 innings, 7-5. Baltimore beat Oakland with a grand slam in the 10th out in Oakland. And the Angels beat Cleveland in LA 4-3. The Yankees trailed Boston 2-0 top of the 5th, and the Yankees prize rookie is making his debut tonight, Luis Severino. Fly ball into center. Pilar broke back. Now he comes in. He has to hurry, and he gets there to make the catch. Drew Hutchison has retired 7 straight. He sorted things out.
Match coverage of the Barclays Premier League, Bundesliga, Euro 2016 qualifiers, FA Cup, and more. Contact your television service provider to subscribe today. Visit sportsnet.ca/world for details.
What's going on in the soccer world right now? Of course, the great coverage that Sportsnet provides. Make sure you check it out. This is Ben Revere. He's a threat to bunt, and proof the third baseman is well in front of the baseline at third. Inside. Ben Revere grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. He was a big Braves fan when he was growing up. He was traded from Minnesota, his original team, to Philadelphia for Vance Worley and Trevor May. There's his first base hit as a Blue Jay. Leadoff single. He's got speed. He's aboard.
I'll tell you, when you go to a new team, you want to feel like you're going to contribute and do something, and he feels much better now after he gets his first hit for the Blue Jays. You wonder when it's going to come. You want to contribute. You love the wins, and there it is right there. Now you just go out and play the game now.
He led the National League last year in hits, had 184 hits for the Phillies, hit 306 for the season. His major league average coming into this season, 291. So I knew he was going to get a hit. This is Troy Tulowitzki. He has walked and struck out. Goes after that high heater. How about that, Tuloranto? And Tulo, he has really been welcomed in here very quickly.
Boy, the fans love him. and just like they love Donaldson and Bautista, all the other guys, but Tulo, there's something about him that these fans have really taken to. 35 extra base hits this year.
Another pitch right in the same spot upstairs, and Tulowitzki's behind 0-2. J.R. Graham came on in relief in the third. Tyler Duffy started his first major league game. Didn't go as well as he would have liked. He lasted 2 innings, gave up 6 earned runs on 5 hits, and gave up the grand slam to Bautista in the second. Right down the middle. Tulowitzki caught looking again. Second time he's struck out, taking strike 3. Josh Donaldson is 1 for 1, and he has walked in the first inning with Tulowitzki aboard. He goes deep.
Yeah, after your team gets down 3 runs like they did tonight in the first inning, how nice is it to have a guy like that come up with one swing, get you right back into the ball game? That erased that 3-0 deficit, made it 3-2. Now it's Donaldson's 29th home run. That ties his career high.
And this is just the 109th Blue Jay game of the season. He got a few more games left. Fastball catches the outside corner.
You can see the mentality of J.R. Graham. You look at the scouting report, it says he's a bulldog, he's a competitor. He's throwing fastballs at the Blue Jays. He's challenging them with that fastball.
Making good pitches. Way outside, that breaking ball. Down and away. Donaldson now with 80 RBIs. That ties him for the major league lead with Nolan Arenado of the Colorado Rockies. They both have 80. His home run number 29 ties him with J.D. Martinez of the Tigers. Tied for 4th in the American League. Trout, Cruz, and Pujols first, second, and third. Donaldson pops it into the seats out of play. Donaldson has scored a run tonight. He is now tied. There are 3 players tied atop the American League in runs scored. Dozier, Trout, and now Donaldson all scored 76. How about driving in 80 and scoring 76?
Amazing. A chance the other day from all the fans of MVP. I mean, you got to start thinking about that as we get closer to September.
Off speed pitch, and Donaldson strikes out, 2 down.
Last time he faced the Blue Jays back in May, through 3 innings, had 4 strikeouts. There's a breaking ball right there. He was the Braves minor league pitcher of the year in 2012. You can see why Minnesota picked him up in that Rule 5. They put him in the bullpen. He's done a good job for him.
Jose Bautista did a good job for the Blue Jays in the second. He had a grand slam, his 5th career grand slam. Bautista is having another big offensive season. 24 home runs, 75 RBIs for Bautista, despite the fact he's hitting under 240. I don't know about you, Pat, but anytime you think about a run producer, all I want to see is the home runs and the runs scored, driven in. Yeah, Bautista's right there among the leaders.
When the batting average can be a little bit overrated.
Bautista has scored 67 runs. He's in the top 10 in the American League in that department. And he has led for most of the season in walks.
He's had 84 hits. Think about that. 84 hits for Bautista, and he's driven in 75 runs.
That's doing some damage. Three and 0 to Bautista. And you can bet he's got the green light, even with Encarnacion on deck. He has got such plate discipline. You can turn him loose whenever you can. Takes his strike up and away, not one he wanted to swing at.
Yeah, he had the green light right there, but he wanted that ball a little bit closer towards the middle of the plate and down. So he just took it.
3-1. Ball four. That's walk number 70 for Jose Bautista. First and second, 2 outs. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. And that came off of prize Yankee prospect Luis Severino, who has struck out 7 in 5 innings. He's allowed just 2 hits. But the one hit, David Ortiz, 21st home run of the season. Severino was the asking price for every ball club talking to the Yankees about trade. Aaron Judge, big outfielder, and Luis Severino, those are the first 2 names, and the Yankees said, no, thank you.
Yeah, Brian Cashman had a lot of chances to deal his top 4 prospects, and he said, no, I want to build something here. And the Yankees are actually getting younger as the season goes along, bringing up some of their young prospects.
2-0 to Encarnacion. The Blue Jays have hit 2 home runs already tonight. Donaldson a 2-run shot, Bautista a grand slam. Encarnacion looking for home run number 20. Right on cue. 3-run home run for Encarnacion. Blue Jays have a 2-run homer, a 3-run homer, and a grand slam. Home run number 20 for AA. RBIs 58, 59, and 60.
You know, you start falling behind guys and walking them in the middle of the lineup, putting guys on base. 2-0, you got to come in sometime. And he came to AA, and AA hit it a long way to left field.
Wow. What a lineup. Bautista with 24, Edwin with 20. Chris Colabello has a single tonight.
2-0 pitch. This is how you hit a 2-0 pitch right there. Fastball out in front. And that's a long way to left center.
I know you're not supposed to do it, but I'm looking forward to Friday night.
Well, hopefully we can talk like that 24 hours from now, right?
Wow. 9 runs on 7 hits, 3 more home runs tonight. David Price has got to be thinking, who are these guys?
Or I'm glad I don't have to face him anymore.
Oh, and 1 to Chris Colabello. And remember, the Twins had a 3-0 lead. They have since been outscored 9-0. Been a disappointing time since the All-Star break for Minnesota. Coming into this game, they'd lost 8 of their last 12. 2-2 to Colabello. Full count. Colabello got his major league start with the Minnesota Twins. This season, he had a big home run against the Twins, and Glenn Perkins, their closer, came in Minneapolis earlier in the season.
Always seems to do something whenever he gets a chance to play. They put him in there. He comes up with a big hit or big RBI. He's already done something tonight we haven't seen a lot from Chris this year. He's got an infield hit. Legged it out in the first inning.
Colabello bounces this one to second. Dozier hasn't. The inning is over, but the Blue Jays have scored in 3 of the first 4 innings. They've hit 3 home runs. Edwin Encarnacion connects for a 3-run home run, his 20th of the season. The Blue Jays have a 9-3 lead. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zahn.
First 20,000 fans will receive the alumni bobblehead Sunday, August 16th, when your Blue Jays take on the Yankees. For tickets, call 416-341-1234 or visit BlueJays.com. Should be a great series.
Sure will be a great series, Hazel. The Yankees in town, and Blue Jays are honoring their 85 division championship ball club. This is Eric Fryer, who was called up from AAA on the 8th of July, AAA Rochester. He struck out his first time up. Well, whatever Hutchison did after the second inning, he better write himself a note. Note to self. Make those adjustments earlier. He has been terrific.
Keep it down. He's making quality pitches. Struck out the side in the third inning. I think the double play did a lot for him to end the second.
Got a big double play off the bat of Aaron Hicks, as he had a couple of aboard and was able to get out of that. And Fryer strikes out for a second time, 1 down.
The 2015 Honda Civic is Canada's best-selling car for 17 years in a row and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Beautiful evening in Toronto. It was a 23-degree evening at the start of this game. It's cooled off a bit, but boy, is it comfortable. Really a gorgeous evening here. This is Shane Robinson. He flared a little single into shallow left field in the second. Hits this one hard. Backhanded by Donaldson. Knocks it down. Fires, and Colabella can't dig it out of the dirt. Hot shot. Donaldson knocked it down, found it, and threw low in the dirt, and Colabella couldn't dig it out.
Stay down as a third baseman, and that's exactly what Josh does. He goes down, knocks it down, picks it up, and in his haste to get it over there, just can't get the ball on a fly, and Colabella can't pick it.
That's too bad. Donaldson made a nice play. That looked like a double down the left field line. He knocked it down. Colabella just couldn't help him out. It's an error on Donaldson, his 15th. You think anybody's counting Donaldson's errors?
No.
There's a deep drive to the left. Revere back. It is up against the wall. Robinson is being stopped at third as Aaron Hicks has his second hit, an opposite field double.
Looked like the same pitch that Hutch got Hicks to ground into a double play, the same one, but this time Hicks makes the adjustment, drives the ball off the wall on a short hop in left field for extra bases.
Aaron Hicks is 2 for 3. This is the second time the Twins have used him in the leadoff spot. In this series, Hicks hit down in the order in the 7th spot in the first 2 games of this series. Tonight he's bumped up to number 1. Brian Dozier was called out on a strike in the 3rd. He didn't like the call and told the home plate umpire that he didn't like it. 2nd and 3rd. He goes after the first pitch. This is popped up and playable. Russell Martin over near the dugout stays with it and is able to make the play. Martin didn't see it for a while. It's still a very twilight sky. He looked up knowing where he thought it would be. Couldn't locate it. Watch his reaction.
Looks up for it, now says I don't see it, finds the stands, and then all of a sudden finds it again and then makes the adjustment to get a big out. And how about that? A little flip to finish that one off.
Oh, he's a heck of an athlete. And you can see him looking up into the sky. It is very, well, it's twilight here. And he couldn't find that ball initially, but had an idea where it was. 2 down now. Drew Hutchison trying to strand 2. Joe Mauer walked and scored in the 1st.
You know, it's funny on those pop-ups when they go above the lights, it disappears. And you almost have to wait for that ball to get down below the lights again before you find it. Russell did that and made a good play. Good adjustment.
Mauer checked his swing, and Tim Wilkie, the crew chief, validated that fact. When you talk about those pop-ups, and catchers are always taught that when those pop-ups go away from home plate, they're going to come back toward home plate in the same fashion. So it'll be like a big banana going up, and then it's going to come back, and so you never really run to where you think it might come back, because it's going to come to you. Ball and strike to Mauer. Base hit to left field. Robinson's in to score. Hicks is going to score right behind him, and Joe Mauer delivers a 2-out, 2-run single to left. For Mauer, RBIs number 45 and 46.
Well, that's a classic Joe Mauer swing, isn't it? 2-1. It looked like a changeup from Hutch. He just stays with it instead of trying to pull the ball. He just shoots it to left field for a couple of RBIs. And the Twins take advantage of the error by the Blue Jays. That pitch down and away, and Mauer just stays right with it.
This is the cleanup hitter, young Miguel Sano. Mauer entered this season the 2nd highest active batting average in the majors, batting .319 at the start of the season, 1 point behind Miguel Cabrera. Mauer is a 3-time batting champ. Sano has singled, scored, and has also struck out. The Blue Jays have committed 2 errors tonight. Chris Colabella was charged an error when he dropped the pop-up off the bat of Miguel Sano, but Drew Hutchison struck out Sano, so no harm, no foul on that Colabella error. Different story on the Donaldson error, and quite frankly, that was a ball that a lot of first basemen will pick, and Chris Colabella will probably tell you he should have picked it out of the dirt. Two and two. We are in the top of the 5th. Blue Jays have a 9-5 lead. Full count. Mauer at first will be moving on the pitch. 2 outs. There goes Mauer. Sano hits it high and deep to left, and this one's going to be gone into the second deck for Miguel Sano. That's his 5th home run of the season, and the Twins are clawing their way back into this game. Mauer comes around to score on the home run by Sano. That gives the big rookie 16 RBIs.
You he had some big home run seasons as a minor league. You can see he's going to hit some home runs. A short swing as Liam Hendricks has been up for a couple of minutes now trying to get loose. They put a charge into that fastball. 3-2. You got a big lead.
Well, the problem was you got 3-2.
Yeah, that was the problem. I'd like to see him put him away on that 2-2 pitch. It goes to 3-2, so you challenge him with the fastball. It leaks back towards the inside part of the plate, and the big guy sends it out of here.
Sano's just 22 years old. He is a big-time hitting prospect. Torrey Hunter, the veteran, nodding in agreement that Sano's got some power. This is Trevor Plouffe. It's a 9-7 ball game now. Four runs for Minnesota this inning, and there's another high fly ball to left. Revere in front of the scoreboard gets there and makes the catch. So Drew Hutchison has thrown 5 innings. He walks off the mound with a 2-run lead. Blue Jays lead at 9-7. Martin, Goins, and Pilar for the Jays.
TD. While over in the Jays Care Community Clubhouse, we welcome guests from Brantford Boys and Girls Club. We hope everybody's enjoying the game.
Welcome to the ballpark as the Blue Jays have a 9-7 lead. Twins scored 3 in the first and 4 here in the 5th. Russell Martin leads things off. Martin has gone over 2 so far tonight. J.R. Graham in his 3rd inning of relief. This might be his last inning. Graham was cruising along pretty well. Had pitched a good 3rd inning and then gave up a leadoff single. And then struck out Tulowitzki and Donaldson, so it looked like he was going to get out of the woods, but he walked Bautista and then Encarnacion hit a 3-run home run. This is a mile high. Second baseman Dozier waits for it, and Martin's retired.
There's no rest stops in this lineup, is there?
You know, that's what's so discouraging when you're an opposing pitcher. You go, okay, well, I got Tulowitzki and Donaldson, and now I'm out of the woods. But then he walked Bautista and set the table for Encarnacion. So Molitor, the manager, has made the call to the bullpen. Brian Dunsing, the left-hander, is warming up. Ryan Goins has come to the plate. The lefty has gotten 1 for 2 tonight. So J.R. Graham will depart. Dunsing, one of 3 left-handers in the Twins bullpen, will come in to face Ryan Goins with 1 out here in the bottom of the 5th.
Live on the radio with the best broadcast team in the business. Jerry Howard, Joe Siddle, Jeff Blair, and Mike Wilner on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Always a great opportunity to turn your radio on if you can't watch television and join Jerry, Joe, and Mike. New pitcher into the game is the left-hander Brian Dunsing, making his 37th appearance of the season.
Dunsing is 4th on the Twins' all-time list as a reliever. A lefty reliever. 336 outings now for Dunsing.
Everyday Eddie Guardado leads that list. He's the all-time appearance leader for left-handed pitchers. And Guardado is the bullpen coach now for Paul Molitor. They called him Everyday Eddie when he pitched because he was ready to go every day. There's Eddie Guardado, reunited with Torrey Hunter, his teammate. Also with LaTroy Hawkins, the Blue Jays reliever. They were all great teammates early on with the Twins.
He, Torrey Hunter, and Paul Molitor, their influence, I think, on Minnesota has really shown this year. When we were there in May, everybody was talking about their influence and the professionalism that they have brought back to this team.
Goins will take the walk. Dunsing walks the first man he faces here in the fifth. Blue Jays need to get some runs back. It's a 2-run game, 9-7 Jays. Kevin Pillar's 1 for 2. Singleton scored in the second. Dunsing throws another ball, and that gets him a visit from the catcher, Eric Fryer. Blue Jays trying to win 3 in a row in this series. They'll play the final game of this 4-game series tomorrow. Drew Hutchison getting a visit from the skipper and the pitching coach. He is out of this ballgame after 5 innings, but he has the lead. In the series finale, Minnesota will send Kyle Gibson to the mound. The right-hander is 8-8. Mark Burley, the Blue Jays lefty, 11-5, will pitch the final game of the homestand. Looks like Liam Hendricks is going to come in. Boy, what a season Burley has put together. Twins think something might be up with Goins and Pillar, the runner and batter in this situation.
Pillar is taking a long look at Louis Rivera, the third base coach for the Blue Jays. Maybe he put something on right here after they've thrown over there a couple of times.
Pillar takes his strike. It's 1-1. Off-speed pitch. Pillar's out in front.
That's his best pitch right there, the circle changeup. Dunsing will throw a 2 and a 4-seam fastball, sinker and a 4-seamer. He's got a hard slider that he'll throw to the lefties, but he'll use that changeup right there to the righties.
Good take by Pillar. It was downstairs. That evens the count at 2-2. Popped into right. Eddie Rosario, the right fielder, is there. Pillar's retired. That's the second out of the inning. Drew Hutchison in line for the win. He is 7-1 pitching here at Rogers Center. This is his 11th start at home. Tyler Duffy made the start for the Twins, his major league debut. He lasted just 2 innings, charged with 6 earned runs on 5 hits. Ben Revere has had a productive night. Revere had a sac bunt in the second and then had a leadoff single in the fourth. He scored on the Encarnacion 3-run homer. Pulls this one down the right field line. That's going to be another hit for Revere. Goins is headed for third. Revere stops at first. His second hit of the night comes against the lefty.
Yeah, he can hit left-handers because he stays in on them. That was a breaking ball that time from Dunsing, and he didn't give any ground to him. Single to center field his last time up, and that was a good piece of hitting right there, pulling that ball to right field for a second hit. Watch how that front shoulder stayed in there until he was ready to swing. Got his second hit as a Blue Jay.
So Ben Revere's had 3 good at-bats tonight. A sac bunt, a couple of singles. He scored a run. That'll be it for Brian Dunsing, the lefty. The Blue Jays treat him rudely. This will be Blaine Boyer, his second appearance of this series. He'll come on to face the top of the order. Blue Jays trying to stretch out their lead. They lead 9-7. Tulowitzki to face Boyer when we come back. Two runs, 1 earned on 2 hits in an inning of work. Troy Tulowitzki has got 0 for 2, a walk and 2 strikeouts.
Keeps looking for that breaking ball from the Twins. They keep throwing him fastballs with runners on base. Sure, Tulo has faced Boyer in the past. He was in the National League with the Atlanta Braves. In fact, this is his first season pitching in the American League.
Tulowitzki 4 for 10 against the Twins right-hander. He has indeed faced Boyer in the past. 0-1. Another fastball for a strike. Tulowitzki, you're right. Seems like he is looking for breaking balls, and they continue to throw him that fastball.
That'll happen when you've got some speed on the bases like the Blue Jays have right now. Ben Revere over at first base can steal. He can really run.
Breaking ball. Revere stays at first. Goins remains at third.
Finally, Tulowitzki gets a breaking ball, and Fryer keeps it in front of him. And runners cannot move up.
Revere has 24 steals this season in 29 attempts, and this might not be a bad time to run. 1 and 2. They might throw a breaking ball to Tulowitzki. Not running here. Missed with another fastball. We're in the 5th inning. 4th at bat for Tulowitzki.
Those extra at bats at the top of that lineup. You want your best hitters up. Revere with a little shorter lead now at first base.
Full count. Revere will be on the move with 2 outs. Goins at 3rd. Trevor Plouffe asks for time, and he'll go over to have a chat with Blaine Boyer. Donaldson. That had all started for the Blue Jays. They were down by 3 as they bat in the bottom of the 1st, and Donaldson hit a 2-run home run. That's why Plouffe came over to chat with Boyer, and you can bet Louis Rivera gave Goins a heads up. Be allowed for anything here.
Figure something like that was up. You know, you can't do that fake to third, throw over to first base anymore. So once the Blue Jays saw him set up and throw over there, you knew that's what they were talking about.
To center, Hicks gets over and makes the catch. Tulowitzki hit it hard. The Blue Jays will stand a pair. In the 5th, they have a 9-7 lead, and we'll go to the 6th, and here comes the Home Hardware cleanup crew, brought to you by Natura. Home Hardware's exclusive line of safe, environmentally friendly cleaning products.
Eastern only on FX. F changes his appearance to leave the city, while Nora is left as the reluctant parent for Zach. Don't miss an all-new episode of The Strain, Sunday at 10 Eastern, only on FX.
Thank you very much, Hazel. We move to the 6th inning. The Blue Jays have a new pitcher into the ballgame. Drew Hutchison out after 5 innings. He's in line for the win. He's the pitcher of record. This will be Liam Hendriks, the former Minnesota Twin. He was signed as an amateur free agent by the Twins in 2007 from Perth, Australia.
Liam last worked 4 days ago, so he is well rested. There is his numbers in 36 games, 3-0 with a .253 earned run average. Will probably ask to do more than just 1 inning since he is the long man out of the pen tonight, and has allowed just a few runs, just an ERA of 1.20 when he works more than 1 inning.
For Hendriks, this will be his 37th appearance of the season. He'll work to Eddie Rosario to start the 6th. It's a high pop-up over near the seats. Ben Revere will run out of room as it pushes back out of play. Boy, Hendricks has been a real pleasant surprise for the Blue Jays, really stepping up, working out of the bullpen. He has finished 13 games for the Jays. He's done a terrific job. Over 7.5 strikeouts for every walk he's allowed.
Yeah, you mentioned that he was with the Minnesota Twins, started with the Twins organization, and now he's with the Blue Jays. The Twins haven't seen the 2015 rendition of Liam Hendricks.
Now, he spent parts of 3 seasons with Minnesota, had a 2-13 record, and they tried him as a starter. 28 of his 30 appearances as a Twin came as a starter. And the Blue Jays did the same. They brought him up as a starter. Last year, he made 3 starts for the Blue Jays and had a couple of good starts, and the last one wasn't so good. He went back to AAA and eventually ended up in Kansas City. Liam Hendricks and Eric Kratz went to Kansas City on July 28th for Danny Valencia. And Valencia has since been hooked up with the Oakland Athletics. He in fact played third base today for Oakland, and Brett Lawrie played second.
You know, the Blue Jays brought Liam back this winter, and everybody said, why are they bringing him back? But they knew something. They saw him pitch in winter ball, and they moved him to the bullpen, and he has been nothing short of great, really. Hendricks has thrown 36 games, 46 in the 3rd innings. He's had 47 strikeouts and just 6 walks. He's always been a guy who's thrown a lot of strikes.
Liam made 6 starts in the Dominican Winter League this year and really pitched well. He strikes out Rosario to start the 6th.
Make your renovation a cut above during the DIY Expert Sale. Only at Home Building Center and Home Hardware Building Center.
Beautiful shot of CN Tower right next door to Rogers Center. Eduardo Escobar, the shortstop, as swings at the first pitch and sends Revere back to the wall. It's off the top of the fence. It stays in the ballpark as Escobar hits one off the top of the fence in left, just missing a home run. That's his first hit of the night.
Not a lot of power from Escobar, so I think Revere is a little surprised that that ball carried the way it did. From the left side, he gets that ball out in front and hits it hard the opposite way. Revere gets back, but it's over his glove right off the top of the padding there and stays in the ballpark.
This is one of the few ballparks where there's still a fence where the ball will disappear if it goes over the fence. Twins were looking at the video of that in case they wanted to challenge a ruling on the field, but indeed it's a double. Hendricks comes right back and throws a strike to Fryer.
Needs a shutdown inning right here. Blue Jays have been threatening all night.
Fryer has had a rough start to his night. He struck out twice against Drew Hutchison.
Hutch kept pumping that fastball at him. Up and away, and he just hasn't been able to catch up to it. There's another one right there. Wow, everybody thought it was strike 3.
Pitcher, catcher, and batter all thought that was strike 3. The only guy that matters is the home plate umpire, Tom Woodring, and he thought it was a ball.
All 3 of those pitches right on the corner. That's a strike. He missed it.
1-2 to Fryer. Tried again. And came right back with the same pitch and strikes him out. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Matt Boyd didn't walk a batter, struck out 2. and he outpitched Johnny Cueto through 7 innings. Shane Robinson, there's a pickoff attempt at second, and Escobar is back.
Well, not a bad idea right there to help out their pitcher. Russell Martin is always thinking about a way to try and help out that starting pitcher with a pickoff. This time, just a little bit late to get him. I tell you, Liam has been throwing the ball really well.
Since the All-Star break, that double by Escobar is the first hit Hendricks has allowed. This is his 6th game since the All-Star break, and that's the first hit he's given up. 7 1/3 coming into this game. He has not walked a batter and recorded 10 strikeouts prior to this appearance. He has 2 more strikeouts in this inning.
One pitch away from another one.
Shane Robinson gets a piece of it. Robinson's had a nice night at the plate. A little extra utility player, came from the Cardinals, and he's just one of those guys you discount him at bottom of the order, but he had a 2-strike base hit in the second, reached on an error, and scored in the 5th.
They become tough outs, don't they? Tough outs at the plate. You got to make a pitch.
High fastball at 96. Mentioned Hendricks went to winter ball last year, made 6 starts, went 4-1 with a 162 earned run average. Good for him. That's him throwing really well in the season, and there's a strikeout. How about Hendricks? He strikes out the side in the 6th, gives up a double. That's the first hit he's allowed since the All-Star break. This Blue Jays bullpen really on a roll. Hendricks using that breaking ball to strike out Shane Robinson. He strikes out the side.
Friday, August 14th, from the comfort of an Acura luxury suite at Rogers Center. Your single ticket includes hostess and food for only $150. Reserve your ticket before they're gone. Call 416-341-1635.
Josh Donaldson takes a first pitch strike from Lane Boyer. Boyer came in and got Tulowitzki to line out to end the 5th. Donaldson hit a home run, a 2-run shot in the 1st. He walked and scored in the 2nd, struck out in the 4th. A slider off the end of the bat, and Donaldson is quickly behind 0-2.
High breaking ball right there. Boyer's had his problems versus right-handers this year. He's got a good sinking fastball and a good slider. Righties are hitting .313 against him with an on-base percentage of .361. He's got a couple of tough righties this inning.
Donaldson and then Bautista. Donaldson called out on strikes. That fastball down and away. He strikes out for a second time. Jose Bautista with the bases loaded in the second inning. That's his 5th career grand slam, his 24th home run of the season. And that erased an early deficit. The Blue Jays were trailing 3-2 when Bautista connected.
I tell you, the home run can get you back into any game, can it?
Blue Jays have hit 3 tonight. A 2-run homer, a grand slam by Bautista, and an Encarnacion 3-run homer.
They still need a solo home run, don't they, to hit for the cycle and
need
home
a solo
runs?
shot for the cycle. Yep. Bautista's home run in the second was his 21st career home run against Minnesota. He's got the best at bat per home run ratio among active players against the Twins. Just over 8 at bats for every home run he has hit against Minnesota.
It's interesting to watch teams come in here and try to figure out how they're going to pitch to the Blue Jays. Tonight we've noticed Minnesota, they've really challenged them with fastballs. And they've caught a couple of these batters looking for breaking ball.
Yeah. That approach has led to 9 runs on 8 hits for the Blue Jays. Bautista fights off that inside pitch. Poof to Mauer. 2 down. Lefty Brett Cecil is loosening up. Hicks is a switch hitter. Dozier a right-handed hitter. Then the number 3 hitter is Joe Mauer, lefty. Boy, Cecil's been throwing the ball very well. John Gibbons has plenty of options in that bullpen right now, the way everybody is throwing. He's had the addition of LaTroy Hawkins and Mark Lowe. Sanchez's return, albeit Sanchez serving his suspension tonight. In case you're just joining us, Aaron Sanchez decided to drop his appeal tonight. Will serve the 3-game suspension for the next 3 consecutive nights. He'll miss Friday night in New York, but then be available for Saturday and Sunday.
He had been working a lot, Aaron Sanchez, so I wonder if that played into it, that he was going to have a couple of days off anyway.
Sanchez worked in 3 of the 4 Kansas City games, and he worked in back-to-back games in Seattle before the Blue Jays came home. He had pitched a lot.
Pitched yesterday.
So it's probably a welcome 3 days off just to keep Sanchez sharp. Encarnacion lifts a high fly to right. Long run for Rosario, and he's not going to get there. Rosario had a long way to run. He just couldn't get there, and Encarnacion will get another swing. The Sanchez suspension is the first suspension of a Blue Jays reliever since Jesse Carlson was suspended for that brawl they had in New York with Jorge Posada in September of 2009. Not often that relievers really get into a dust-up, but Sanchez was thrown out of the game because he hit Alcides Escobar after the warning was in place.
I remember the Jesse Carlson one. He was covering home plate, and Jorge Posada scored and elbowed him, and it was on, man.
1-2. Encarnacion hits it sharply to the shortstop Escobar. That'll close out the Blue Jays in the 6th. We'll go to the 7th. Liam Hendricks had a great inning. He struck out the side. Brett Cecil's coming on now to work the 7th.
TV bundle for $62.97 per month for the first 3 months. Find out how by calling 1-888-ROGERS-1.
Good crowd on hand here tonight, 27,725, and Brett Cecil will come in to start the 7th. Top third of the order, Aaron Hicks, Brian Dozier, and then Joe Mauer.
First time that Minnesota has seen Cecil in this series, as Justin Smoke has taken over at first base.
Smoke in for Colabello at first. Hicks, a switch hitter, will bat right-handed. For the first time tonight, he's 2 for 3, singled and doubled. He's aggressive tonight. He scored 2 runs. Molitor, the manager, Paul Molitor, put Hicks in the leadoff spot tonight. Just the second time he's hit first all season. And Molitor looked like a genius when Minnesota scored 3 runs on 3 hits in the first.
Shake it up. Hicks normally, in this series at least, has been hitting 7th. They want to get his offensive skills up at the top of the lineup. That'll happen to players sometimes when they move around the batting order. You just see it from a different angle. You have a different view of it. Hicks looks a little bit more aggressive tonight.
Brett Cecil has really thrown the ball well. He has not allowed a run in his last 13 appearances. That's his bread and butter pitch, that nasty curveball. This time he throws it into the dirt. Cecil worked as the closer early in this season, but I believe he's really best suited in these situations here. 7th inning, come in when you got a key at bat with the left-hander, and that time he gets Hicks. Hicks trying to check his swing. He is out on strikes, 1 down.
The 2015 Honda Civic is Canada's best-selling car for 17 years in a row and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Nighttime here in Toronto. The ferry making its way back to the mainland from Center Island. Boy, this week the weather's been beautiful here in Toronto. Blue Jays will wrap up their 10-game homestand tomorrow. Final game of this 4-game series against the Twins. Mark Lowe was up earlier in the game, and he is standing by. He's ready. Lowe faced 1 batter in yesterday's game and retired Aaron Hicks. Fly ball to left. The Blue Jays split the first 2 games of this series with the Phillies, then took 2 of 3 from Kansas City, 3 of 4 from Kansas City, and now they won the first 2 games against Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm just trying to win this one here. They got that bolt of energy with the trade deadline deals.
Dozier strikes out as Cecil has come in here, and it's got that good curveball working. Back-to-back strikeouts for Cecil.
They're trying to keep that momentum going, and this will certainly help right here. Brett Cecil with that, we'll call it a knuckle curve. He puts that finger on there, a spike curve, where he can really pull down with that middle finger, and he creates a lot of spin on that breaking ball. He too has made a few adjustments. Remember, he used to hold his hands higher. Now he is going from the belt. It feels like that helps him stay over the rubber just a little bit longer. It certainly is working. You mentioned the numbers that Brett has had lately. Just a 190 average over his last 13 games.
Mauer drives it to left. Revere was shaded in that direction, and he's there. Joe Mauer is retired. Brett Cecil 3 up, 3 down. Hendricks and Cecil have combined to strike out 5 in their 2 innings of work. The bullpen is on a roll.
Saturday, August 15th, the Blue Jays face the New York Yankees. Join us pregame outside Gate 10 for inflatables, activities, and lots of fun. After the game, kids 14 and under can run the bases just like the pros. For more information, call 416-341-1234 or visit BlueJays.com. Buck.
Thank you very much, Hazel. It'll be a great opportunity for another Junior Jays center. He's always very popular. David Price and Marco Estrada. Boy, they were great in their most recent starts. And David Price has been a welcome addition to this pitching staff. Price went 8 innings, allowed 1 run on 3 hits, and struck out 11 in his Blue Jays debut. And then Estrada yesterday, 1 run on 2 hits over 6 2/3. This is Kevin Jepson, who worked the 8th inning, 3 up, 3 down in yesterday's game.
Had a couple of strikeouts against the Blue Jays, and they don't get a pinch hitter.
Justin Smoke batting for the first time, takes a first pitch strike. Ball and a strike to Smoke. Chris Colabello started at first. He went 1 for 3 against his former team tonight. Tomorrow night it'll be Kyle Gibson, the right-hander for Minnesota, against Mark Burley, the lefty for the Blue Jays. It'll be the 10th and final game of this homestand. And then the Blue Jays head to New York. And it'll be an interesting 3 days in New York. You look at the pitching matchups. R.A. Dickey will open up for the Blue Jays against Nathan Eovaldi on Friday night. It'll be David Price and Ivan Nova on Saturday afternoon. Smoke strikes out. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays Baseball Partnership. The Blue Jays have broken out the big bats once again tonight. 3 home runs in the game, a 2-run shot, a 3-run homer, and a grand slam. The Sunday pitching matchup in New York will feature Marco Estrada against Masahiro Tanaka. I think the real interesting thing about the rotation for the Blue Jays in New York is the fact R.A. Dickey's going to open it up. And as hot as the Yankees have been, tonight Stephen Wright for the Red Sox, a knuckleballer himself, has held the Yankees to a run on 4 hits through 8 innings.
There you go. That's what you want to look at. Wright is very similar with that knuckleball.
Russell Martin bounces it to first. Mauer flips to Jepson. 2 quick outs.
You know, that's one thing I like about the Blue Jays starting rotation now. It's very diversified. You got a knuckleball pitcher. You got a left-hander who throws 95 plus in David Price. A left-hander in Burley who cuts it and sinks it, throws a lot of strikes. Marco Estrada is a different type of right-hander with his changeup and curveball. And then you've got Drew Hutchison.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when you can have Dickey and then Price. You talk about a contrast of styles in back-to-back games, and then Estrada follows up Price with his changeup and curveball. It's quite an adjustment over the course of a 3-game series.
Blue Jays have done a good job of setting up their rotation, and then David Price fit right in when he was acquired.
I think David Price would have fit right in anywhere. We'd have shoehorned him in there somewhere. Ryan Goins has had a nice night. He's been on base 3 times. He reached on a strikeout in a wild pitch in the 3rd. He singled in the 2nd and scored, walked in the 5th. Off the plate outside. The Blue Jays, with 3 more home runs tonight, have now hit 146 home runs for the season. And they are 11-3 this season when hitting 3 or more home runs in a game. Goins will walk for a second time. The walk comes with 2 outs. Goins once again doing his job. He's been on base 4 times. Pilar has reached once in his 3 plate appearances. And Ben Revere has reached twice with a sacrifice bunt as well.
Yeah, you just keep getting closer and closer to the top of that lineup. You walk those guys down at the bottom. That drives managers crazy. 2-out walk like that when you're down at the bottom of the lineup.
Ben Revere has his first 2 hits as a Blue Jay tonight. Kevin Pilar 1 for 3. Good rip by Pilar. He fouls it straight back to the screen. Ball's in the dirt. Fryer gets on it quickly. Goins holds his ground at first. We're in the bottom of the 7th inning. Blue Jays trailed this game 3-0 after the top half of the first inning. Twins got 3 runs on 3 hits in the top of the first. Blue Jays came back with 2 in the bottom of the first, and Bautista's grand slam in the second. Concepcion had the 3-run home run in the 4th. And the Blue Jays have a 2-run lead. That's going to get away from Fryer, and that's going to allow Goins to get into scoring position.
Jepson's got a good breaking ball. It's a big curveball. Time he bounced it in front of home plate, and catcher Fryer just couldn't keep it in front of him. Blue Jays will gladly pick up that extra 90 feet and get into scoring position.
They would love to have an extra run right here in the 7th. Hits are even at 8 apiece. That ball goes all the way back to the screen. That was a very interesting delivery by Jepson. Looked like he had a hesitation, kind of stepped and then paused and then threw the ball in the dirt. Almost like he was trying to deceive the hitter. Watch his delivery here.
He is usually right over the top, and it's almost like he threw it sidearm.
It was very unusual how he didn't really follow through with his arm. Like he really cut it off short and threw a ball right in the dirt. So now Goins is at 3rd. Back-to-back wild pitches here has moved Goins from 1st to 3rd. And Pilar will walk. You know, this is the combination that the Blue Jays use so effectively. They've hit 3 home runs and they've had 6 walks. And now they're deep into the Twins bullpen. Starter went just 2 innings as Tyler Duffy made his major league debut. But the Blue Jays are so disciplined 1 through 9 in the order that they will wear out a pitching staff.
And they take advantage of your mistake. If you're not going to throw strikes, they won't chase pitches off the plate. Defensively, if you make a mistake, keep the inning going. I mean, it's almost like they smell blood and they're ready to go finish him off.
Says Ben Revere has had his first 2 hits as a Blue Jay tonight. Revere was 0 for 13 coming into this game. 0 for 13 as a J, 0 for 16 overall going back to his time in Philadelphia. So that's now a distant memory. He had a sacrifice bunt in the second, singled in the fourth, singled in the fifth. It's a high fly ball to center. Hicks has got plenty of room. He made a good read on that, broke back quickly and makes the catch. The Blue Jays stranded pair will go to the 8th. The Jays lead it by 2. Mark Lowe coming into the game.
AL champion Royals battle Ian Kinsler and the Detroit Tigers at Comerica Park. You can catch it right here on Sportsnet tomorrow at 1 Eastern. And Buck, you may be interested that the social media guru Yordano Ventura will be starting this game for the Royals. Back to you.
Yeah, they have really taken a beating on the social media in Kansas City. Everybody's calling them the Mad Boys of baseball right now. They have been in 3 dust-ups this year. Ventura himself got into kind of a shouting match with Mike Trout. I think he's in the wrong weight class when he goes up against Trout.
Didn't he do that with Bautista too?
Yeah.
Called Jose a nobody?
Yeah, nobody. 2-time home run champ.
Okay.
Maybe not so. Bautista, I thought, handled it perfectly.
Yes.
He said he's a fine young man. He's a young talent, and he'll gain some experience. Handled it very well. Took the high road. This is Miguel Sano. He's had a good night. 2 hits. He's homered. Hit a 2-run homer in the 5th. That's his 5th major league home run. This is Mark Lowe. Faced just 1 batter yesterday. Got him out. Got Aaron Hicks to fly out.
This is the spot where Lowe pitched with Seattle. He was the 8th inning guy, the setup guy for the Seattle Mariners. Done a heck of a job. You saw the numbers there. A 169 earned run average. Got a hard fastball and a hard slider.
In 34 appearances with the Mariners, he had a 1 ERA. And that slider rattled around in the glove of Russell Martin. But out in Seattle, we saw Lowe twice in that Blue Jays series in the West Coast, and he pitched 3 innings overall, threw the ball very well. That might have been the final little piece of the information the Blue Jays needed to pull the trigger on the Lowe trade. That's strike 3.
Yeah, you watch a guy, you're up close and personal with him, and you're saying, boy, wouldn't he fit nice on our team right there? So they did it again. Alex Anthopoulos and the group were able to get him away from the Seattle Mariners. And now pitching the 8th inning tonight with Eric Sanchez starting to serve his suspension.
That's 6 strikeouts now for the Blue Jays bullpen. You know what, and that has really become the important factor in contending ball clubs. Shut down bullpens. We're going to see one in New York over the weekend. And they've got Betances and Miller into their bullpen, and Blue Jays now they can match them up arm for arm.
And depth. I think you have to have depth, especially as you get into August and September. On a game like tonight where your starter can only go 5 innings, at 98 miles an hour with some movement on it.
Yeah, that's deep depth.
Yeah, deep depth. I like that. Well, you go 5 innings, you got to cover 4 tonight.
Ball and a strike, 1 out. Ball is hit to right. Bautista will come in and make a nice running catch as he comes in quickly to retire Trevor Poof. Boy, I tell you what, and you look around all the good ball clubs. Kansas City last year, great bullpen. They got to the World Series. The Yankees have put together a great bullpen. Baltimore has a great bullpen. Zach Britton, their closer. Now the Blue Jays have plenty of options down there. And you know what they've done? They've added power. There seems to be a drop-off at 94 miles an hour in the opponent's line drive percentage. And if you can throw harder than 94, chances are you're going to have a lot of success.
That's part of the new math, if you will, in baseball, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
They look at line drive percentage on fastballs, 93, 94 miles per hour plus.
This is Eddie Rosario. He is 0 for 3 so far. But with Sanchez serving his suspension, first game of the 3-game suspension, you got Lowe, you got Hawkins, you still got Osuna, and you got Bo Schultz. Blue Jays are probably carrying one too many pitchers right now. On the ground, Goins, second base. Nice inning from Mark Lowe. 3 up, 3 down inning. Lowe with another strikeout. The Blue Jays bullpen throwing up some zeros here tonight. So we'll go to the bottom of the 8th. Blue Jays lead at 9-7. Now time for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zorn.
Live or on demand in true HD. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widget, and much more. MLB.TV Premium includes a free at-bat 15 subscription. Watch baseball at home, at the office, or on the go. Season-long subscription packages are available. Visit BlueJays.com for more details.
Thank you very much, Hazel. New pitcher into the ball game is the right-handed reliever Casey Fiend. We have seen Fiend earlier in this series as well.
He will get the 3 right-handers. And look at the right-handers are hitting just .212 against Fiend. He's got a nice cutter. He learned that in spring training 2012. Saw him yesterday in the ball game.
Troy Tulowitzki in his 5th at bat of the night will lead things off in the bottom of the 8th. Tulowitzki 0 for 3 with a walk. His walk came in the first inning after the Blue Jays were down 3-0, and he scored on Josh Donaldson's 2-run homer. Blue Jays were right back in it. Didn't waste any time erasing that 3-run deficit.
They keep pounding him with fastballs. Since that walk, a couple of strikeouts tonight, and a line drive to center field.
Ground ball to short. Escobar throws out Tulowitzki. So Josh Donaldson homered in the first, another extra base hit for Donaldson. And when you look at the leaders in the American League, Donaldson now with 58 extra base hits, the Twins second baseman Dozier, and then Trout, Teixeira, and Cruz.
That's what I love. If you're a good hitter, you've got extra base pop, especially doubles. And we talk about Donaldson with the 29 home runs. He also has 29 doubles. And the Blue Jays are the only team in the American League with at least 200 doubles. I mean, that shows you power. It also shows you that you're a good hitter when you hit a lot of doubles, because you can power the ball into the gaps.
Blue Jays don't have a double tonight, but they made up for it with 3 home runs. 209 doubles for the Blue Jays on the season. We talk about doubles all the time. To me, they're kind of more damaging than a home run because they keep the pitcher in the stretch, and he's always got a runner in scoring position.
All those good teams, those good offensive teams, just look at where they are ranking in doubles year in and year out. So that's something that the Blue Jays didn't have, I think, over the last couple of years. But now you had Martin, and you had Donaldson, you had Tulowitzki, good hitters with power.
The Yankees are second in the American League at the start of play tonight with 192 doubles. Blue Jays have overtaken the Yankees in home runs with 3 home runs tonight. Yankees 144 to start of play. Now the Blue Jays have hit 146.
Yankees have been scoring all those runs. Start of play tonight. Blue Jays still 44 runs ahead of them as LaTroy Hawkins starts to get loose.
Donaldson fouls it straight back. The Yankees are trying to rally against the Red Sox. Bottom of the 9th in New York. Boston has a 2-1 lead. O'Hara in the game. Full count, 1 out to Josh Donaldson. Up and in, and Donaldson strikes out. 2 down. Now it's time for the drive of the game. It's brought to you by the 2015 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car for 17 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Blue Jays needed a big hit in the second inning, and Jose Bautista delivers with 2 outs and the bases loaded. Jose Bautista sends this one out of here for his 24th home run. 4 runs. The Blue Jays take the lead with that one swing. It's our drive of the game.
For Bautista, that home run was his 21st career home run against Minnesota and his 5th career grand slam. Came off Tyler Duffy, the rookie, making his major league debut here tonight. Three and 0 to Bautista. Blue Jays only have a 2-run lead. Looking ahead to the top of the 9th, bottom 3rd of the Twins order. Escobar, Fryer, and Robinson. Bautista with a 3-0 cut.
Yeah, a guy can hit a home run like that. You're looking for one, you give him the green light. See if he can put one on the board quickly.
Another drive to left field. Shane Robinson over in the alley. He gets there and the inning is over. Casey Fiend 3 up, 3 down in the 8th. First time we're going to see LaTroy Hawkins in a save situation. He'll come on to pitch tonight against his former team, the Minnesota Twins. The 9th inning. The veteran right-hander. Those are his numbers combined between Colorado and Toronto.
Look at the bottom numbers down there. Just 4 base on balls for LaTroy in 25 and a third inning. He's 2-1 with a 320 earned run average. This is a save situation, and he has done that for Colorado when they got him. It's an interesting story. The Blue Jays were looking at some of the players for the Colorado Rockies and watching them over a period of time, and LaTroy Hawkins kept coming in and kept getting 1, 2, 3 innings and getting outs. And Scout went over and called Alex and said, "Hey, Alex, LaTroy Hawkins can help this ball club." So they included him in the trade with Troy Tulowitzki, and he's done a great job for him.
Yeah, they were keeping an eye on Tulowitzki, as they have been for the last several months. They were watching Tulowitzki, and every time Tulowitzki played, Hawkins would come into the game and he'd get everybody out. For Colorado, Hawkins made 27 appearances this year, picked up a couple of saves last year, had 23 saves for the Rockies. His career high 28 came for the Twins in 2001. Hawkins now 42 years old, bottom third of the order for Minnesota. Hawkins, Torrey Hunter, and Eddie Guardado all went out and had a nice dinner here on Monday afternoon after the game. They're very close. Hawkins and Torrey Hunter are neighbors down in Texas.
I want to know who picked that bill up.
They said Torrey did. He's got the big iron. Torrey told us a story when he was a rookie. Eddie Guardado was the veteran, and Torrey would call up Guardado in the hotel room, says, "Eddie, you hungry? Take me to lunch."
Knowing who would pay, right?
Everyday Eddie. 0-2. Hawkins ahead of Escobar. He fights it off. The Blue Jays bullpen has allowed 1 hit and recorded 6 strikeouts in 3 innings. Hawkins working the 4th inning for the bullpen tonight. Liam Hendricks struck out the side. He gave up the double to Escobar in the 6th. Then Cecil came in. He struck out Chu in a perfect inning. And then Mark Lowe, he retired to side in order as well. He struck out a batter. Boy, this looks like a different ball club.
You add a couple of arms, a couple of veteran arms, if you will. LaTroy's 42. Mark Lowe's 32. They've been around. They're not going to be intimidated or feel like they don't have something to get you out with. They've been through the wars.
Past Donaldson, he dove for it, but it was beyond his reach. Escobar has a leadoff single here in the 9th. Nobody out. Now for a preview of what's coming up on Sportsnet Central, here's Ken Reed in Ivanka Osmak. Thank you very much, Ken, and that's all coming up, so make sure you join Sportsnet Central right after this ball game and check in with Ken Reed and Ivanka Osmak. This is Eduardo Nunez coming on as a pinch hitter. Nunez played in the first 2 games of this series. Nunez played third on Monday afternoon, played short last night, and he did not start in this game. He's hitting for Eric Fryer, the catcher. Nunez bounces it foul at home. LaTroy Hawkins, 21 years of experience. He's also had 4 years of postseason experience. He's been in 8 different postseason series. He was with the Twins in 2002 and 2003 going into the postseason. 2007, part of the World Series team for the Rockies. They lost to the Red Sox in the World Series. There's a base hit to center. Back-to-back base hits here in the 9th. So now things get a little interesting. Nunez comes off the bench to single against Hawkins.
Free swinger, a pitch that was up from LaTroy. Bangs it right back through the middle. Now third batter coming up as the bullpen starts to get ready. It's a sinker that doesn't sink, it stays up, and Nunez gets on top of that.
LaTroy reminding himself he's got to get that ball down. So now Donaldson will come over to check in with Hawkins to make sure Hawkins understands what the bunt defense will be here. Shane Robinson has been on base twice. He had a single, reached on Donaldson's error in the 5th and scored, and he struck out against Hendricks to end the 6th. Things are getting interesting.
They might not bunt here.
Robinson shows bunt, takes a strike. I agree with you. The Blue Jays, they score so many runs, you hate to give an out away here. I know you're down by 2. Leadoff man is on deck. Aaron Hicks has gone 2 for 4 tonight. Switch hitter. Popped up, and Donaldson will have to go to first. I think he was thinking that ball might go foul, but it stayed fair, so he takes the out at first.
You know, there's a couple of thoughts there. You don't play for the tie when you're on the road, but then the other thought is, well, we got to tie it up before we can try and win it. That time it almost backfired on him. Hawkins plays that high fastball into a pop-up bunt, and Josh was thinking about letting it go.
Yeah, if that ball bounces toward the foul line instead of back toward the mound, I think he lets it go. I think you could see by his body where he was positioned, he was anticipating it was going to bounce and kick to his right. So now the tying run is in scoring position at second. That's Nunez. Escobar's at third. And here is Aaron Hicks. Paul Molitor, the manager, put Hicks in the leadoff spot for just the 2nd time this season. It served him well. Blue Jays with double barrel action in their bullpen. Schultz and Luke. There's a strike. Much better location as Hawkins was working to get that ball down.
Yeah, you saw that after the base hit by Nunez, saying, hey, I got to get my hand out there and I got to get that ball down in the strike zone. And you'll get your share of ground ball outs.
Hawkins pitched the 8th Monday afternoon behind David Price after Price had 8 strong innings. Hawkins pitched the 9th. $27,725 in Rogers Center. Pop-up. Donaldson's got room in foul territory. 2 down. Troy Hawkins 2 for 4 in save opportunities, calls out Russell Martin from behind the plate. Wants to talk things over. Got a tough customer at the plate in Brian Dozier.
And a tougher guy on deck also in Joe Mauer. Tulowitzki's in there too. This is really interesting.
Dozier 1 for 12 in the series. 0 for 4 tonight. Mauer is on deck, 3-time batting champ.
You know, whenever you see a shortstop come in there to talk in that situation, Buck, it might have to do with the signs with the runner at second base.
How are you going to pitch him? Should I play him to pull or play him straight away? Tulowitzki has stepped to the pull side and short. Line drive left field, ball game. Well, Troy Hawkins picks up the save, his 3rd of the season. And the Blue Jays have taken the first 3 games against the Twins.
Well, this is a line drive to left field. As a first pitch fastball, Dozier does that. He's come over some big hits, but watch Ben Revere. He's not real sure with these lights here. They can get caught in there. He turns away, but that ball finds the glove. And he's feeling pretty good about himself. He had a good game, and he gets to finish it with a nice play.
Ben Revere 2 for 3 tonight, and the Blue Jays win it 9-7. And you take a look at the updated AL East standings. The Yankees lose to the Red Sox 2-1. The Blue Jays gain a game. They were in second place, 4.5 back.
You know, they're still talking about right here, if you're the Blue Jays, hey, we got a big one tomorrow night against Minnesota before we start thinking about running down the Yankees. You know, you hear it all the time, 1 game at a time. I think that's what the Blue Jays are thinking about right now. One at a time.
The Blue Jays came back from an early 3-0 deficit. They've won 3 in a row. They win it tonight. Drew Hutchison, the winning pitcher, will wrap this homestand up tomorrow night. Mark Burley goes to the mound against Kyle Gibson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night. Stay tuned. Sportsnet Central. Here's Ken and Ivanka.